the beginning of the year, I've met many people recently that have set out New Year's resolutions for themselves. And many of them want to have a new beginning because of previous failures they've had in the past. In the Bible, God has a concept concerning new beginnings. And you can see it in the book of Exodus. Now, many of us, we've read Exodus chapter 12, right? Where you see the children of Israel at the Passover, where the lamb was slain, the judgment of God passed over them, and they left Egypt, right? They went through the Red Sea with Pharaoh and his armies chasing them behind, getting buried in the Red Sea, and they had a new beginning in the wilderness, right? Eventually getting into the good land. That was a new beginning for them, being out of slavery. But eventually, that was Exodus chapter 12. Eventually, you get to Exodus chapter 40, right? There's a second beginning with the children of Israel. Let me read you a verse. 40 verse 2 says, "On the first day of the first month, you shall raise up the tabernacle of the tent of the meeting." Right? It's the first day of the first month, and this was of the second year, right? A year after they had left Egypt. God had given Moses a blueprint of the tabernacle, how he wanted to build the tabernacle, so that God could have a dwelling place on the earth, right? And eventually the children of Israel would live and serve the Lord in the tabernacle where the Lord would dwell, right? In the Holy of Holies. This was another new beginning for them. And what they did is they erected the tabernacle in chapter 40 and had a new beginning, learning to live and serve the Lord in this tabernacle. So for yourself as a Christian, many people have had the experience of Exodus chapter 12. You've all been redeemed, right? The judgment of God has passed over you. You've been cleansed by the blood. You've left Egypt. But have you had the experience of Exodus chapter 40, right? Where concerning God's dwelling place on the earth, right? The tabernacle was where God dwelled in the Old Testament. He dwelt in a physical building, but today God doesn't dwell in a physical building anymore, right? God's dwelling place on the earth today is the church. And all the believers need to have two beginnings, right? We need to have the experience of Exodus chapter 12, and we need to have the experience of Exodus chapter 40. And I'm not talking about going to a place on a Sunday, an event to just listen to someone. I'm talking about God's dwelling place, right? God's dwelling place in Ephesians chapter 2 is in our spirit, right? I'm talking about believers coming together in mutuality, in homes, right? Caring for one another, praying with one another, being God's dwelling place on the earth where He can live in and where He can be expressed out so that He can carry out His eternal purpose through human beings, right, whom He lives in. Just like every other believer, I had the experience of being redeemed, just like they did in Exodus chapter 12. But I found myself searching for more. Now, why wasn't it good enough just to be redeemed by the blood of the Lord Jesus? Why was I seeking more fellowship? Why was I seeking to be with other believers? You see, when the Lord enters into people, the Lord's life is a corporate life. He wants to be with other people, right? He wants His built-up church on the earth today, right? That's why He told Moses to build a tabernacle, so He could have His corporate testimony in Exodus chapter 40. And I found this. I found this in the city that I live in, with a group of people that meet together in this kind of way. That's not religious. There's no forms. There's not a set of doctrines that I had to follow. But there's a group of people who meet in mutuality and who love and care for one another in an intimate setting where we come together to meet. This changed my life when I no longer lived an individual Christian life, but I could be built up spiritually with other believers and go on in my Christian life not as an individual Christian anymore, but really get built up with other believers to be the Lord's dwelling place on the earth today, so that the Lord could dwell in this group of Christians and be expressed out of them. This is how the Lord desires us to have this second kind of beginning. To live in this kind of way, to be the Lord's dwelling place on the earth, this is to have the experience of the second beginning in Exodus chapter 40. Every Christian needs to have the second beginning.